We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Sunday, December 31st, the final day of 2023. And let's be honest, 2023 has been a motherfucker. It's been a rough year. A lot of ups and downs, a lot of problems, violence, all kinds of things going on in 2023. And to be perfectly honest, 2024 is probably going to be tumultuous and stressful and that sort of thing. But I think it'll be more in a positive vein. It'll be kind of a reckoning. It'll be the year of accountability. And I also think it will be the year of momentum. People always talk about with what's going on with Donald Trump and the Republicans and all this sort of stuff that why is it taking so long? When is something going to happen? When is Donald Trump going to jail? Well, the fact of the matter is that the legal system is slow. There's a process, and Donald Trump does everything he can to drag it out even longer to delay the inevitable. But once we get past 2023 into 2024, we're going to start to see some momentum. There'll be some things happening. We've got a lot of trials coming up. Starting in March, it's going to get crazy from that point all the way through the election. Donald Trump is going to spend a lot of time in court, and he doesn't have a choice as to whether to come or not. He's got to be there. Just pigeonholing Donald Trump in one spot every day for a long period of time is going to drive him nuts. Then when you throw in the fact there'll be tons of evidence showing that he's a dipshit, a criminal, corrupt piece of shit, it's going to be hard for him to take. And it'll be interesting to see how he reacts to all this stuff. We know how he's reacted to the lawsuit, and he doesn't even have to be in court there. So this coming year, it's going to be a year of accountability, but of momentum. Everybody worried about when is something going to happen. Henceforth, there's going to be a lot of shit happening, and it's going to be fast and furious. And there'll be a lot of people happy about that. I'll be happy about it, that we'll finally get some activity and some real movement. That's not to say we didn't have anything happen in 2023. A lot of people will say that, oh, nothing's ever happened. Well, a lot of shit happened. All the indictments and all the evidence and all the people flipping on Donald Trump and the other Republicans. We had plenty of shit happening, but it just brought us to a point, a culmination of to where we are now. And now we're going to be starting to head downhill. And as we head downhill, you're going to see some of those things you've been begging for a year to 2 years. I firmly believe that 2024 will be a year of reckoning, a year of accountability, and a year of momentum. The momentum will begin, and it will get busy, except this time around, the busy will seem fun because we'll finally get some accountability from these people who have taken advantage of this country and the people in the country. Now, we start things out, and this is a tough show to do. We've got a few things to talk about, but a Sunday before New Year's Day, there ain't a lot going on. There's not much going on in the news. There's not much going on with our politicians. Hell, those motherfuckers are still on a break. Congress will be on a break until January 8th. That's yet another week beyond the actual holiday. So it's hard to see what they're going to be doing or not going to be doing if they don't even show up in D.C. They're in the Bahamas or in their beach houses doing whatever. The fact of the matter is they're not doing what they're supposed to do because we're still dealing with and waiting for a budget so the country doesn't shut down in and around January 15th. They got a continuing resolution to give them more time to deal with that a couple of months ago. And what have they done to try to shore up that situation? Well, they haven't done fuck all. They're going to wait till the last minute like they've done every other time. They'll probably get another continuing resolution, and we'll have to sweat this out for another 3 months. Just fucking saying. That's the Republicans for you. Now, I do have some emails, a number of emails. And trust me, I love the emails. Keep them coming. If you want to send a note in, have a question, comment, what have you, send it to rationalboomer@gmail.com. I will read the emails on the air unless you beg me not to, but I haven't had anybody do that as yet. So they're going to be read on the program. Start out with a woman by the name of Judy. She's written before. Good evening, Mike. I tried to find the answer to this and I could not, and I'm curious as to why Lauren Boebert is allowed to change districts when those are clearly not people who voted her into office in the first place. Doesn't the congressional candidates have to know about the people they're supposed to be representing and live in the same area? Not that I believe this would provide her with any sort of advantage. I just don't understand why it's permitted. Thanks as always for your insight. Look forward to your response. Judy, Crazy Cat Mom, Portland, Oregon. It's not a matter of whether it's allowed. She has to go through a process in order for this to happen. She lives in the district she lives in now, and that's where she ran and won a position in the House of Representatives. Well, she's got some problems, not only with her Democratic opponent, just how people feel about her in her own district. Even though it's Republican friendly in her district, she's not feeling like she has the best chance there. So she's moving to a district where Ken Buck retired. Remember, you heard that? Ken Buck said, I'm getting the fuck out of here. She's going to run in his district. But in order to do that by law, and I know that's a stretch when we're talking about Lauren Boebert, I don't know that the law is really a stumbling block for her. But theoretically, what she has to do, she has to move from the district she currently lives in and move to the district where she wants to run, Ken Buck's district. So what all she does here is decides not to run for reelection in her original district, moves into the new district and says, okay, I'm running. That's all it is. There's no rules or anything. As long as you live in the district, technically you can run for whatever you want. Now it's going to be interesting to see if she's able to pull this off. What you'll probably do is get an apartment in that district and say, oh yeah, I live there. I mean, we've seen Republicans do that before. So it wouldn't be surprising if that's the kind of bullshit she pulls off. However, Lauren Boebert is kind of under the microscope right now. So it'll be interesting to see what she actually does. Now, the reason she's moving to this other district is, while the first district is Republican friendly, like by 9 points typically, she's not feeling strong about that. So she wants a little bit more cushion. So by moving to Ken Buck's district, that's a Republican friendly district plus 24 points. So it's high level Republicans in that district. And she feels like she has a better chance there. What she's failing to realize is whether she's in the old district or the new district, she's still Lauren Boebert. And Lauren Boebert is an embarrassment to the people of Colorado. And whether it's her original district or the new district, they all know who she is. They know what she's known for. They know about the groping, the corruption, the Trump humping, and all that stuff. I don't think she'll do well in the newer district. And it's not even about the general election. She's no doubt going to have another Republican running in that district, so there'll be a primary runoff. And if there's a primary runoff, I think there's an excellent chance she won't win, because regardless of what other Republican you put up against her, she's always going to come in second because she's an embarrassment and she's a stupid piece of shit. So this is a desperation move by Lauren Boebert. I don't think it's going to work. She's going to be out of Congress after 2024, and good riddance. With any luck, she'll be among the people on any superseding indictment from Jack Smith when we go a little deeper into the January 6th investigation. All right, the next email. I agree with you 100%. Good start. It's just this country got manipulated by the media. He was labeled as a successful business owner when he wasn't. He was on the cover of Time magazine after 9/11. Asked, how do you feel about it? He said, my building is the tallest in New York. Now, the media is at fault for most of his presidency because they always reported him as a successful businessman and not the failure he is. Everyone wanted to not have a corrupt president, but elected the most corrupt person ever. Yeah, with Donald Trump, it's always been smoke and mirrors. He's never been successful at anything. The only reason he survived is because people bailed him out. His father, to the tune of $400 million. Got to tell you, if my dad gave me $400 million, I might have talked to him in the end, and I would be wealthy right now, if for no other reason than the $400 million he gave me. But see, the media saw Donald Trump as kind of a cash cow. He is a shit show. He's always saying crazy stuff, and that is good TV. They didn't care what was going on with the country or what would happen to the country. All they knew, Donald Trump was good TV. So even though he wasn't a serious candidate initially, they kept putting him on. And as they put him on, people became more accustomed to him, either liked or didn't like what he was saying. And all of a sudden, he was given legitimacy. The only people responsible for legitimizing Donald Trump is the media. The media fucked up. And you know what? They still wouldn't apologize now because they made a lot of money. And that's all that matters to them. If you're looking for journalism in this world today, I dare say it doesn't exist, or at least not to the extent it once did. Most of the media outlets don't comply with journalistic rules. Thank you, Rob. Next one comes from Vincent. Hello, Mr. Rational Boomer. I've been watching your TikToks for a long time and I really enjoy your perspective. And I just wanted to thank you greatly for all the good you're doing. Thank you for reading. It's greatly appreciated. The rot consumes us all, Vincent. Well, thank you, Vincent. I appreciate the kind words, the vote of confidence. And to be perfectly honest with you, when I started doing this, I just thought, well, I'm going to do it for my own personal reasons. And I say that not because I'm arrogant, but because I had no idea that anybody would listen to anything I have to say. And then as we got deeper into it and people contacted me and say, hey, you made me feel better, or you're saying what I want to say, or you taught me something, then I realized I had a great opportunity here. And it's not about financial gain. It's not even about the gain of any fame. If you can do something in your life and do good for other people, that's what you want to do. Too many people get into business or life or on the internet, and it's all about enriching themselves. And that is nice. I mean, if you're struggling and want to um, make a living doing it, I'm not going to fault you for that. I just happen to be fortunate enough to not really need to derive a great income from this internet shit. So I have the freedom to do what I want to do and say what I want to say what I actually believe. And if people resonate with that and repeat that, then we're all doing a lot of people some good. And that's a wonderful thing. Thank you, Vincent. Next one, John. This is a short one. I really love your videos. Keep on giving the Trump-la-fucks hell, John. Well, John, you can count on it. Up until November 2024, we've got to pour on the steam. There's no point and no time for relaxing. If you thought it was fast and furious and intense in 2023, as far as I'm concerned, it's going to be worse. It's going to be harder in 2024. We can't get this far along and let it go or lay back or be apathetic. We've got to keep going after this, keep informing people, and keep the real information in the narrative and try to drown out all the fucking lies. This is absolutely crucial, this 1 year or 10 months leading up to the election. It's absolutely crucial that we do this. And it's not crucial for the likes of me or anybody of my vintage. All of us have gone through our lives, done what we've done, and we're probably on a track that's not going to change regardless of who's president. What we really have to do this for is our kids and our grandkids. Every time I look at my 3-year-old granddaughter, it makes me nervous. Not only because she spends a lot of time giving me shit, but also I'm thinking about her future. She's 3 years old. 20 years, she'll be 23. She'll be in the mix of the adults. What's this country going to look like? If Donald Trump has his way, it would be a fascist country. And I just will not fucking have that. And I don't think you will either. So it's up to us to fight hard and push and ramp it up a notch in this year leading up to the 2024 election. If we can just get to this election, get a blue wave, get control of the House and the Senate and the White House, we can settle down a little bit at that point. We still got to pay close attention to our politicians and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. But at least we can relax a bit and know that at least we're on the right track. So, as far as keeping it up, yeah, that's not a problem. I'm going to be doing that. All right. The next email says, I hope you are having a great day with your granddaughter. I have a bunch of them as well. Yeah, I spent the day with my granddaughter. It was a babysitting job. And frankly, I talked about this yesterday, I think. But I spent 10 hours with my granddaughter alone. Now, normally I would have my wife with me, and she does typically the heavy lifting when it comes to parenting. I'm just the fun grandpa who gets in trouble with his granddaughter. That's who I am. Now, of course, when I'm there, it was all pretty easy going. It's still hard though. I mean, she's very tiring. Takes a lot out of an old guy. And she wasn't really running around that much, but she was busy all the time. And you got to stay on top of it because you never know what those little fuckers are going to get into. And if she gets hurt or breaks something, it's on my ass, and we aren't having that. I don't want to go to my wife or my son and say, well, this happened. Because then they're going to say, see, I knew you couldn't do it, which always struck me as strange with my wife and my son. Because when my sons were young, if my wife was working, I'd be there alone with my kids. And it went fine. It's not like I don't have experience. I told a story on TikTok. I think I even told the story here, but I love the story so much, I'm going to tell it again. So, my granddaughter and I are playing around, doing puzzles, watching Bluey, watching The Good Dinosaur, doing all the important shit two intelligent folks have to do when they're hanging out during the week in dad's apartment. So at one point, my granddaughter decides she's going to go get her dad's tablet because there's games on there that she can play. Dad put the games on there for her. Okay, cool. So anyway, we're playing the tablet. I'm actually watching. She's playing. She takes her finger and she runs it around, mazes and all that kind of shit. And everything's going well until something doesn't go well. Something goes wrong. And my granddaughter, this sweet little 3-year-old, looks at the tablet and goes, "You fucker." I go, what? Honey, what you can't say that. You can't say that, which is ironic coming from a guy like me, but I don't swear in front of her, so she doesn't know that her grandfather has a horrible mouth. She didn't get that shit from me, but she says, "You fucker." And I look at her, honey, you can't do that. It's not a good thing. Don't do that. And she looks at me with all sincerity and she says, Grandpa, I wasn't saying it to you. And she points to the tablet and says, I was talking about that fucker. I go, wow, man. I hope this isn't the first time you said it because I'm going to get the heat for this. And while there's no absolute proof that I taught her this, they're going to believe I did because they know how I talk. Anyway, turns out she's done this a few times and this isn't new. I'm not happy she's doing it. I did think it was a little funny and I stopped myself from laughing. But it was a day. It was a 10-hour day, no breaks. We just sat and hung out. And I am not in the condition I once was because hanging out with a 3-year-old is a bitch. But I love that kid. And if they call me tomorrow and says, Dad, can you do another 10 hours? I'd be there quick, fast, and in a hurry. All right, the email goes on. I really appreciate your response to my email concerning my doubting Thomas colleague. Must be talking about Clarence Thomas. I think he's afraid of the consequences of another DJT presidency. I think he has reason to doubt people based on what happened in 2016 and in earlier years. He says, I actually know jazz musicians who are pro-Trump. They actually support a man in a party that would actually probably ban jazz music in the country if they could for obvious reasons. I even know a few who have actually been radicalized and fall for the conspiracy theories and cannot be reasoned with at all. These are people who are educated and have degrees, who are supposed to have critical thinking abilities and have totally lost it. And again, that's something you can thank the media. They'll sit and watch Fox News thinking it's news, not knowing any better. And if it comes out on the news, it must be true. So they believe it. But it's their fault for not looking deeper, maybe investigating, or as they used to say, do your research. They don't do that. They're hearing what they want to hear, so they just go with it. Emailer says, I can't figure that out. This is where the fear and doubt come from. It's scary. The Republicans and Orange Mussolini operate on an old American political adage. Wave, wave the flag, thump the Bible, give them someone to blame, and I'll get you the rubes to screw themselves every time. I'm 71, and for the past 40 to 50 years, that concept has worked. That's why uh, people get worried. You're right, though. There is definitely signs of change for good. No matter what happens, we are going to fix this place. Sorry to be PIA, but you become a powerful voice of reason. Thanks for reading my emails and setting my ass straight. Happy New Year, Z-Man. You remember Z-Man is the one that was telling us about the Democrat who had this gloom and doom idea that Donald Trump was going to win, and I kind of went off the deep end for me. And I wasn't admonishing Mike Z. I was admonishing the dip fuck that he was talking to. Thank you, Z-Man. I appreciate it. All right. The next email. Hi, Mike. I hope you enjoyed your day with your granddaughter. I did. I'm sure you did. I listened to your show with Old Soul, and as usual, it was great. Also, as usual, I had a few thoughts. First, Alina Habba. That wench is just a useless, dishonest, run-of-the-mill troll. Just watching her speak triggers me. Second, you spoke about Trump and his shitty pants. I looked it up, and Adderall does cause issues with poop. Not surprising. But I think that is just part of the reason. I think he's a lazy man child and he does whatever is easiest. Dropping trow in his diaper is easier than going to a toilet and doing it properly. Third, you spoke about Iowa. I think that would not sign that they would not sign on to feed the kids that extra $40. Republicans never cared about children once they were born. They only care that they can control the situation and force birth. The Democrats really need to work on their messaging and get it out there that the Repubs were happy to spend $2 million to bus immigrants as a stunt, but not willing to help children. Also, along this point is what Old Soul said about food deserts. While we all don't live in food, I'm sorry, I said deserts, deserts. That's what Old Soul said, food deserts. While we all don't live in food deserts, it happens where there are grocery stores too. People can't afford the food that is healthiest for their kids, but can afford things like pasta and quick meals. So then the kids aren't as healthy as they could be. It really isn't fair. I seriously doubt anyone sets out to make their child unhealthy, but you can only do what you can afford. Fourth, Jack Smith is doing his job and doing it extremely well. That man is intelligent and scary as hell. Anyone that thinks he is not doing his job needs to fuck off. I agree. I also looked up who in history has had the most criminal charges brought against them. It isn't Trump. There was a man that had 172 charges brought against him in Florida by a prosecutor there. Thank you for doing that. I really wasn't sure about that. 91 seemed like a lot, but 172 is more. However, I don't think they're done with Donnie yet. So we'll see if he gets close to the record. She goes on to say, but other than him, I saw nobody else with as many as Trump. So he's number two. Kind of fitting, isn't? Donald Trump is number two in so many ways. And finally, fifth, as far as Trump being taken off the ballot in Colorado or Maine, it really doesn't faze me one way or the other, but I feel like he should be kept off all ballots and not allowed to be allowed to take office per the Constitution. However, if he is removed, he will never hear the end of his whining and screeching about how the election was stolen from him. While I think he loses in 2024, he will still hear the same old shit about it being election fraud and it was stolen. And let's not forget their favorite election interference due to Biden and the Justice Department. We might as well just let him run. At least if he runs, it should be less whiny. I pray that he fades into the woodwork when he loses, but I honestly don't think he'll ever stop until he croaks. Okay, enough of my rants. Happy New Year and keep up the good work. Hugs, Deb DZ from Delaware. You know, I hear this a lot. They'll say, well, even if he loses or gets taken off the ballot, he'll be screaming and yelling. What you have to understand, though, it's a much different situation than after 2020. If he goes to the election and he loses, yes, he will scream all those things, but people will be not so enamored with him, at least the relatively reasonable minded Republicans. He will have lost every race since 2016. That will be the end, and they will step away from him. So he can scream all he wants, but nothing's going to happen. He's not going to have any power to do anything. If he gets taken off the ballot and the Supreme Court says it's cool, he's got no recourse. He's fucked. He will fade away, if not in jail, on his own, and wherever the fuck he ends up after they take all his property away from him. So I'm not as worried about Donald Trump after 2024. He won't have near the power he's had after 2020, and people will be tired of losing and they will step away from him. All right, the next email. Hi, Mike. Lauren Boebert is running scared. She barely won last time and was trailing both the Democratic candidate and the Republican trying to primary her. Now she's trying to get into a more Republican friendly district. I was listening to Hawk on TikTok, and he thought it would be funny if she lost the primary in her new district. I agree. I agree, though I can think of something even better. The new district is considered Republican plus 24. That means the Republicans typically win that district by 24%. I think it'd be hilarious if she wins her primary, then loses to a Democrat in a Republican stronghold. You're thinking like my wife here. My wife isn't always happy with, a sports team or a politician getting beat. She takes great joy, and I guess I do too, takes great joy in leaving some hope for the person and then snatch it away from them, broadside them, pull the rug out, if you will. And I get what you're saying here, and I don't disagree. The only thing I will say, I think the faster we can get Donald Trump out of the equation, this country is going to be that much healthier. They go on to say some people are missing with the Michigan decision. This decision is only for the primary. That's absolutely right. The Michigan Supreme Court basically said the parties can nominate whoever they want, and after that, it is time to decide ballot eligibility. Maine removed Trump from the ballot. Originally, I thought the Supreme Court might punt this one. I think Maine might force the Supreme Court to actually do something. It would be a nightmare to have multiple states saying, yes, Trump can be on the ballot, while some states say he will be disqualified. And that's distinctly possible here. He goes on to say, I heard tonight that Representative Thomas Massie has said that the House has the final say in counting the electoral votes. He said that the House should not just count any electoral votes for Biden. First, this isn't true. Congress passed a law changing how many members of each House are required to object to any electoral votes. Second, even before the change, it took both houses. Now Democrats need to keep stuff like this in the news and on people's minds. Most Americans are against acts like this. If the Republicans can keep acting like this, the blue wave might be more like a tsunami. Thank you, Eric. And of course, Eric is our friend in Iowa. All right. Thank you, Eric. Make good points as you always do. The next email. Hi, Mike. I was listening to your Saturday podcast about Trump's land deals. In 2016, I visited the Trump winery with a few girlfriends. We visited many wonderful wineries that day and only went because it was in the way to a planned stop. Our sample was good, and even then, I didn't like the guy. I was struck by the an article from the local paper that was displayed on the wall in the tasting room. It described how the Trump company got the property. They're proud of how they got that property. I don't know what he did to get that property, but no doubt it was something underhanded, something shady, something crooked. That's how he does things. That's, one of the things they've said about this lawsuit that's culminating here soon with a final decision from Judge Engeron as to how much he will pay. A lot that will come into this is what properties were gained with ill-gotten gains or in ill-gotten ways. And those may be just taken away without any regard to equity or anything like that. And I personally think that every property that Donald Trump owns, they can find some dirt on it. And if they do, it'll be interesting to see what, in fact, they do with it. I'm really anxious to hear the final verdict on this lawsuit by Letitia James. We know that he's already been found liable of pervasive and massive business fraud. He's already lost the case. We're just trying to decide how much of a fine he's going to pay and what it's going to do to his opportunity to do business in New York. It's no doubt going to be taken away. It's obviously going to be a sum that's far more than he can afford. If he wants to appeal it, he has to put up a bond. And I just don't think he has the wherewithal to do it. I mean, he'll try. He'll try anything. He's like a cockroach. He'll fight like hell until he can't anymore. But every day it's getting closer to that point where Donald Trump is running out of options. His strategies are no longer working. So this motherfucker's in trouble. And it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in that lawsuit. And thankfully, that's coming very soon. All right. We are going to take a quick break and we will be there. We will be here right after this. Well, we know that in the election interference case in Washington, D.C., overseen by Judge Chutkin and Jack Smith prosecution, that Donald Trump is claiming absolute immunity, that nothing he did, he should be held responsible for. We know that he made an appeal to Judge Chutkin. She said, fuck off. He then made an appeal to the Appellate Court, and we're waiting to hear what's going to happen there. Now, they are going to hear final arguments or arguments. First, I thought it was January 9th. Now I'm hearing it's January 11th, but some point in that time frame. Shortly after that, they will get a decision, and the decision will go against Donald Trump. I know a lot of people are worried about this, but this is so ridiculous and it's so frivolous that there's no way they're even going to listen to this shit. There's just no way they're going to do that. Then it will be pushed up to the Supreme Court. In spite of the fact they chose not to rush this thing, that doesn't mean that they're going to consider it. Personally, I think they just say we won't hear it, and then it'll be over. Donald Trump will have no more recourse in this situation either. If they do hear it, which would surprise me to no end, if they do hear it, there's no way they can agree with Donald Trump in this. It would create a constitutional crisis. As we've talked about before, if Donald Trump is immune from all kinds of prosecution, from what he did in office and after the fact, then so is Joe Biden. And that causes all kinds of problems. And then so is every other president henceforth, Republican and Democrat. It's just so silly. It's just not going to happen. So the good news is when the Supreme Court finally makes its decision, then Donald Trump going to have to set that aside because there's nowhere else to go. And since that particular situation, this immunity thing plays a part in most of his trials, most of his cases, he's going to be without one significant part of his defense in all of these cases. So he's got all kinds of problems. He's gambling here, and it's a Hail Mary pass because there's no way he's winning it. But Jack Smith felt it important to respond to Donald Trump's claim of immunity to the appellate court. And Jack Smith filed an 80-page motion, I guess, to the appellate court. The special counsel Jack Smith's office said democracy is threatened by former President Donald Trump's claim that presidential immunity shields him from criminal prosecution after leaving the White House. Now, Donald Trump's argument is, if you prosecute me, you're going to tear the very fiber of this country, undermine democracy. And Jack Smith in his filing said, au contraire, mon frere, the opposite is true. If Donald Trump can continue doing the things he's done and he's not held responsible, that in fact would break the back of democracy. And I think we all agree that Jack Smith is correct in that assumption, and Donald Trump is full of shit. Now, in a Saturday court filing, Smith's office carefully dissected Trump's plea to the U.S. District Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia, which asked for the federal elections interference case against him to be dismissed. Yeah, he's asked for a lot of dismissals in a lot of court cases. Not one of them have been granted. Now, Trump has made two main arguments. He's immune from crimes committed while he was serving as president, and also that Smith's case against him constitutes unconstitutional double jeopardy, given that he was impeached for the same conduct in the House and let off by the Senate, which is an absolutely ridiculous argument. His lawyers have to know that's not going to work, this double jeopardy thing. We're talking about apples and oranges here. We're talking about Congress, and we're talking about the justice system. The two don't cross. They might work together hand in hand, but if you were let go by the Senate because it's a bunch of corrupt Republicans, that doesn't get you off the legal jeopardy if you committed crimes. Because frankly, Congress isn't in the business of policing crimes and meting out punishment. That is the legal system. And that's why whatever happened in Congress is an absolute ridiculous concept. And it just goes to show how desperate he is. He will pull something out of his ass so ridiculous and then act like it's a real thing when everybody knows it's not real. I mean, it's just absolutely silly. It's something some clown off the street would come up because he thinks it sounds like a good idea. Now, he's got lawyers working for him. Donald Trump's supposed to be the smartest man in the world. He should know that that's not going to work. And I think that's true. I just think he doesn't have anything else he can say. Now, in the 82-page document, it said those arguments lack support in the separation of powers, constitutional text, history, or precedent. Both arguments also threaten to undermine democracy, and that was in the report. Now, the new filing noted that Trump's claims draw no support from our constitutional heritage, and if accepted, would damage bedrock principles of equality before the law. And you'd have to agree. I mean, they're the ones that keep saying no one's above the law. If they find for Donald Trump, this would specifically identify Donald Trump as being above the law. You can see the contradiction there. Now, Smith charged Trump in August while scheming to undo Joe Biden's victory in the 2020 election, alleging going so far as to craft panels of fraudulent electors in certain swing states to overturn the will of voters. And that's the interesting thing. Like I've said before, when it all happened on January 6th, we thought that just a bunch of crazy people attacked the Capitol. What we actually end up finding out is that there is a bunch of planning and a bunch of strategies to try to overturn the election and undermine democracy. This was quite an extensive deal, and we now know that. Now, of course, Trump has denied any wrongdoing in the case, one of several brought against him for conduct during the single term in office that he is being forced to confront as he campaigns for the second term. It goes on to say the presidency plays a vital role in our constitutional system. but so does the principle of accountability for criminal acts, particularly those that strike at the heart of the democratic process. U.S. District Court Judge Tanya Chutkin ruled against Trump earlier this month when he argued the case should be tossed out. Trump appealed, but Smith then took the unusual step of asking the U.S. Supreme Court to step in and settle the issue quickly. The Supreme Court declined to intervene before the Appellate Court could weigh in, so the case now is effectively paused until the courts are given time to fully consider Trump's various claims. The appeals court is currently set to hear the case on Jan 9th. Yeah, that's what I'd heard the first time around. Smith and his team turned back to history and precedent to argue that Trump's immunity claim was bogus. Now, pointing out that former presidents were always intended to be treated as any other citizen under the law, Smith's office cited former Vice President Aaron Burr's 1807 treason trial, which featured some of the Constitution's framers, and determined that the president is elected from the mass of the people and on the expiration time of the time for which he is elected returns to the mass of people again. And that essentially was what our politicians were supposed to be. They were just serving their country, not unlike members of the military. They go in, they do their time, they go home and go back to their regular jobs. Well, of course, that's not the case anymore. They decide instead to stay holding on to the power and making millions of dollars, God knows how. Now, Smith's office recalled founding father James Madison's remarks on the unique potential for corruptibility in the executive branch because it is led by a single person. The team cited disgraced former President Richard Nixon, whose counsel acknowledged in a 1974 brief that presidents may be indicted after he leaves office at the end of his term or after being convicted by the Senate in an impeachment proceeding. It also cited Trump himself, whose counsel argued in response to 2019's Trump v. Vance that the protections Trump sought at the time for his financial records would expire when the president leaves office and would not place the president above the law. As I've told you, this argument that he has regarding this immunity is absolutely ridiculous. There's nowhere in the law that supports anything Donald Trump is saying. This is a Hail Mary, as I said. He's trying anything because he has nothing, and he's not going to make it on this one. The appellate court will overturn it and just turn him away. It'll go to the Supreme Court, and they will do the same. Now, I know a lot of people are worried about the delays because Jack Smith wanted to get it done quickly by going directly to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court says no. Oh, my God, he's going to delay it. Well, the delay won't be more than anywhere from 2 weeks to maybe a month. And that's not long enough to push it out past the election. So Donald Trump tried and he failed. And this argument will not hold up. Next story, reacting to Donald Trump's continuous late night tirades on Truth Social, as well as his ugly, rotten hell attack on special counsel Jack Smith on Christmas Day, MSNBC host Reverend Al Sharpton said the president's legal problems are getting to him. Now, keep in mind, Sharpton does know Donald Trump. He's from New York as well. And he's getting a sense that Donald Trump is getting a little nervous. Now, speaking with fellow MSNBC host Alex Witt on Saturday, Sharpton pointed out Trump shows all the signs of being rattled. With Witt pointing out that Sharpton has known Trump for years, she asked Rev, what do you make of all of this? And Reverend Al said this, I think Donald Trump is more rattled than people think about the 91 felonies he's facing, the 4 cases and the civil suit, Sharpton began. I think that he is showing publicly now that he is becoming even more unhinged, even though many of us didn't think it was possible. Because how do you randomly just do all of that, he continued, unless there's some deep-seated middle-of-the-night anxiety that he's trying to act like a tough guy, but he really has concerns. And I will tell you this about narcissists. They will never own up to the fact that they're wrong or that they're scared. The perception people have of them is the most important thing they have. They got to appear the best looking, the smartest, the richest, the toughest, all this stuff. And if there's any cracks in that, they start to lose it. And for every narcissist, they always go through that because at some point they're spiraling out of control and they ultimately crash. They get to a point where none of the strategies work and nobody believes anything and they can't bullshit or bully anybody any longer. And Donald Trump is so close to that. I mean, I think the vast majority of the public already know this, but there's going to come a time when even his followers are going to say, "What the fuck is that?" Not because they won't believe his bullshit, but because he won't live up to the standards they hold him to. He won't be tough anymore. He'll be a shell of himself, and they'll abandon him because he appears weak. And that's because he is fucking weak. So that's going to be interesting. And Donald Trump is in for nothing but losses over the next 12 months. All right. Let's talk about another clown. And I don't get this strategy at all. If the decision to remove Donald Trump from the 2024 primary ballot in Maine stands, Vivek Ramaswamy claims he will withdraw his own name. Oh, no, not that. Not Ramaswamy, who has absolutely no support, doesn't show up in the pollings for shit. You're going to pull your name if we don't keep Donald Trump on the ballot? Oh, that's not exactly leverage there, Vivek. Nice try, but you may find this hard to believe. Nobody cares about you, motherfucker. MSNBC on Saturday played clips of some of the Republican candidates reacting to the move by Maine to take Trump off the ballot, including Chris Christie and Ron DeSantis, in addition to a clip of Ramaswamy's promise. And MSNBC's correspondent Emma Barnett read a statement from Nikki Haley's campaign. Nikki says, "I stand by my pledge. Any state where Donald Trump is forcibly removed from the ballot in this way, I'll also remove myself." Sorry, that was Vivek. "And I challenge Chris Christie and Nick Haley and Ron DeSantis to do the same thing," said Ramaswamy. You really think they're going to do that, Vivek? Fuck no. These people, while they have kissed Donald Trump's ass, they know the end is near and they're going to try to separate themselves. Only you have your face firmly implanted in the backside of Donald Trump. And keep doing that. See how that works for you. He said, "I stand by my prior pledge to withdraw from any state's ballot that ultimately removes Trump from its ballot. I call on DeSantis, Christie, and Haley to do the same, or else they're tacitly endorsing this illegal, brazen election interference in the GOP primary." See, what he's asking them to do is to be loyal to Donald Trump. Why in the fuck would you be loyal to Donald Trump? He's loyal to nobody. He's bent over backwards to rip both these two. Why would you get off your platform and say, "I'm going to stick with Donald Trump"? If either of these motherfuckers want to beat Donald Trump, it's time they start pushing back. They start tearing up the lead dog, because if they don't, that lead dog's just going to run away with it. And where he ends up, if he's the nominee, who the fuck knows? But these two, Chris Christie and Nikki Haley, are not going to be the candidates under these circumstances, especially. Now, Ramaswamy went on to say, "This is what an actual threat to democracy looks like. The system is hell-bent on taking this man out. The Constitution be damned." No, it's not in spite of the Constitution. It's in accordance with the Constitution. Vivek says, "I stand by my prior pledge to withdraw from any state's ballot that ultimately removes Trump from its ballot. I call on DeSantis, Christie, and whoever." This is ridiculous. This this reminds me of a scene in a movie that I can't quote because it's highly inappropriate now. But when I hear Ramaswamy say this shit, it's like in the movie, what's the movie? Oh, Christ. What is the movie? I know the movie. It's the Jesus fucking Christ. Cleavon Little's in the movie, and it's a cowboy movie. God, you're gonna give me shit for not know. I know it, but I can't say it. But Cleavon Little, I think, is the sheriff, and the crowds people are getting restless, and they think there might be trouble. And he takes his own gun and puts it to his head, and he says, "If you don't settle down, the N word gets it." And he's black, of course. Now, in the time, it was very funny, and and that's the same thing. Who cares if this guy doesn't show up um, on the ballot? Nobody cares. He can't get enough votes to even qualify for the debates. He gets on there because he's got money. Now, several other times in the last several days, the Trump supporting Ramaswamy has doubled and tripled down on the vow that he first made after Trump was removed from the Colorado ballot. Vivek Ramaswamy reacts to the Maine's top election official ruling that Trump is ineligible. He says, "I'm worried for this country." Ramaswamy, you're not worried for fucking anybody but yourself. You're like a miniature pipsqueak Donald Trump. And this movie was Blazing Saddles. Please don't. I got it. I'm slow today. All days I'm slow. I'm 63. Cut me some slack. So you don't have to send the emails. Mike, you're thinking of Blazing Saddles. I know it's Blazing Saddles. Um, Now, there was a quote from Alex Tibet. I don't know what that's about on Twitter. "In any state where Donald Trump is forcibly removed from the ballot in this way, I'll also remove myself, and I challenge Chris Christie, Nikki Haley, and Ron DeSantis to do the same thing, or else they are also complicit," he said. "If every Republican removes themselves from the ballot in Maine, that automatically stops this election interference in our GOP primary." Please, motherfucker. Nobody's going to do that. I mean, if Nikki Haley decided to take her name off the ballot and I'm Chris Christie, I'd say, fuck, I'm staying. Why are you giving in and showing loyalty to Donald Trump, somebody who will never show loyalty to you? Now, on yesterday, he repeated the promise at multiple campaign events during which he has variously said any GOP candidate who does not do so is complicit or a puppet like Democrats. The system is going to do anything it can to stop Trump, he told his audiences. He's working this thing. He thinks he's on to something. I personally think he's on something. And I think it's his own fucking ego. He thinks he's more important than he is. The fact of the matter is, nobody cares. All right. Representative Debbie Dingell, who was elected to Congress after the retirement of her husband, former Representative John Dingell, has firsthand experience with what she refers to as bullying from the former president, Donald Trump. Oh my God. Donald Trump's a bully? Who knew? In an essay for the New York Times, Dingell recalled being attacked by then President Trump, who remarked that her late husband was looking up at her in the wake of her vote for the first impeachment, implying that her deceased spouse was in hell. You remember that one? Yeah, that was brilliant. That's the Trump way. The cruelty is the point. Yet the awareness doesn't make it any less painful. We're human. He knows that and he thrives on it, Dingell wrote. "I'm not seeking a fight with Mr. Trump. It's not easy to tangle with him, especially after that experience involving John. But I do know that hateful rhetoric cannot be ignored or become normalized. We have to stand up to bullies in this country and we have to call out indignities." And she's absolutely right. Too long, people have allowed themselves to be bullied. I'm talking about the Democrats. And when they do that, they keep getting run over. I think the Democrats have learned some lessons now and they're getting better at it, but they've got a long way to go. I never understood why interviewing Donald Trump was so hard and he was impossible to corner. The only way I can imagine that is if they were afraid of him for some reason. Now, if I had a chance to interview Donald Trump, first of all, I wouldn't be afraid of him. Second of all, it would be very easy to run him off the road. He's not very bright. He's not very articulate. He will spew things and he will divert and distract. If you just pull him back and say, okay, we'll get to that later. You need to answer this question. And when he doesn't answer the question, you pull him back. You say, you need to answer this question. Because if nothing else, he's going to get embarrassed. And that is the worst thing you can do to somebody like Donald Trump. Now, she continued, in my view, the only way you can deal with bullies is to consistently call out their inexcusable behavior and stand in defense of those he chooses to target. Dingell repeatedly condemned the former president's Christmas Day message, where he posted to his Truth Social account, in which he wished for his political opponents to rot in hell. I think Jesus said that. In response to her remarks, Trump unleashed on the Michigan Democrat, calling her a loser who didn't show an appropriate level of gratitude when he arranged funeral honors for her husband. You did it, Donnie? No, you used government money to do it. Fuck you. Dingell told CNN at the time that this resulted in Trump supporters showing up outside of her house with assault weapons. Yeah, they're a classy crew. She said, I cannot and will not be bullied or intimidated by anyone. Sometimes tyrants think women will cower. We cannot, Dingell wrote Saturday. We have the strength and the courage to do what is right and fight for the betterment of our communities. And she is absolutely right. Bullying is their only strategy. When that doesn't work, they've lost. And as far as I'm concerned, those of us listening to the Rational Boomer podcast, we're not going to take that shit. People said to me, when I say the things I say about Trump, the fucks, you better watch out. They're dangerous. They aren't. They're pussies. I have one guy, I've never had a death threat or anything like that. I have one guy who says, you better watch out. You're going to get yours. Oh, yeah, motherfucker, from who? You? The guy that's on TikTok and can't even come up with a handle for his TikTok and has 20 followers? Come on over, motherfucker. I had my days when I was younger, when I was a bit of a fighter. Not a lot, but enough. And these people strictly are trying intimidation tactics, and it's not going to work. Nobody believes you anymore. You're not showing up for Donald Trump anymore. And why? Because you're pussy ass bitches. You're scared that you're going to go to jail. And you know what? If you keep pulling this shit, you are going to go to jail. Now, Dingell went on to say, what I would encourage people to do if attacked by Mr. Trump or his supporters is not to be afraid to challenge the attack. Try to de-escalate the situation by presenting an alternative point of view calmly. Disagree. Don't let them bait you to descend to their level. That animosity is exacerbating the problem. We are watching very premeditated and carefully chosen words and actions by Mr. Trump. Disagree with that too. They are stoking anger, further fueling a lack of trust in many institutions and creating a climate that is threatening to democracy. Beware, the dangers are real. Now, first of all, I'll take the second one first. We are watching very premeditated and carefully chosen words and actions by Mr. Trump. That's bullshit. Donald Trump is an emotional animal. He is reacting. He doesn't think a fucking minute about what he's saying. And his proof of that is that how he implicates himself in crimes every time he opens his mouth. This is not a thinking man's oratory. He's not thinking. He's just spewing. And she says, try to de-escalate the situation by presenting an alternate point of view. Please, you can't do that. They don't listen to reason. They don't comprehend facts. Trying to de-escalate them and try to get them to understand the truth, that doesn't happen. It's not going to work. You got to play in their realm. Now, you don't go drop to their level where you're screaming and yelling and stuff. And I know this from experience. You don't yell and scream and engage in the shit show. What you do is you stay calm and you push them with the facts and you keep pushing them up until the time they don't know where to turn and they're embarrassed and they run away. That's how you deal with a bully. You can't, if you're dealing with a bully, sometime you have to get in the mud with them and you got to fight on their level. or close to their level. So I'm not saying go in and engage with these people and yell and scream, but don't back off from them and nail the fuckers at every turn. That's the only way that you beat these people. Now, one of the things that is going on with all this shit happening with the Republican Party, and this is good news, there's a lot of infighting within the Republican Party ranks, and has not only been apparent in the halls of Congress, it's now also threatening the stability of the GOP's operations in a state that's played a deciding role in the last two presidential elections. Talking about Michigan. According to a Saturday report in the New York Times, 8 of Michigan's 13 Republican congressional district Republican Party chairs have now co-signed a letter asking Michigan GOP chair Christina Caramo to resign and put an end to the chaos. The letter came after approximately 40 of the party's state committee members called for a meeting to discuss Caramo's future by the end of the year. However, that meeting has yet to take place. Meanwhile, the Mitten State's Republican leaders are growing more anxious by the day about their party's outlook next year. Now, we have this discord in Michigan, but it's really throughout the Republican Party, all throughout the country. They're very divided. It's a very divisive party. And what that means is it weakens the party. If you took nothing else that's going on, the fact that this party is that divided puts them in deep trouble for the 2024 election. Now, I've said before, I think that the Republican Party would prefer if Donald Trump not be the nominee. And I've had to rethink that a little bit. I think for all intents and purposes, they don't want him as the presidential candidate because they know he can't win. They know that he doesn't have the ability to win the presidential election. Yet they still want him to be the nominee. Why would that be? And I'll tell you why I think that is the case. Because Donald Trump's followers are a cult. If Donald Trump is not the nominee, they just won't vote. They aren't going to vote for anybody less than Donald Trump in their minds. So that takes them off the ballot. That takes them out of the election. And you're probably saying to yourself, well, what does that matter? Donald Trump's going to lose anyway. Yes, that's true. But if they don't show up to vote, guess what? All the people in the down ballot, the governors, the senators, the congressmen, the legislators, they aren't going to get the votes either. I think they've already decided that they're not going to win the presidency, so they got to win the House and the Senate, or at least one of them. And if Donald Trump's people don't come out to vote, it's going to be impossible for them to win. So this is why they're sticking with Donald Trump as the nominee. No matter how crazy it seems, no matter how ridiculous it seems, they seem to be sticking with them. Somebody spoke to some people in the Republican Party and they said, what's plan B? And they said, we don't have one. Donald Trump's going to be the nominee. The only reason could be is they're concerned about the down ballot. And that makes sense, given that his fans are such cult members that they just wouldn't show up. And then a lot of people are going to suffer, and the Republican Party is going to take a beating. That's why I hope that at some point between now and November 24th, that he has to drop out or he's forced out or something like that. Because now I don't think the Republican Party is going to back off him as long as they can put him up as a nominee, as long as they can legally put him up as a nominee. They're going to stick with him through that because they have so much more to lose if he's not the nominee. I think they've already called the presidential election. They know that Donald Trump can't win that, but they don't want to lose the representatives, the senators, the legislators, the governors and such. So I think that's what's going on with the Republicans. That's why they're so staunch about keeping Donald Trump as the nominee. All right, we are going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you all for taking the time to listen. I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.